There we have it. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're getting a little creative today. Everybody will notice that you're kind of parked on the side of the road to get the interview done. So
Yeah,
we're being true entrepreneurs today. We're just making it happen however we have to.
I love it. This is really the life of an entrepreneur
It
right
is,
here.
and you said you were on your way to meetings, right? Going to some
Yeah,
meetings, potential clients or vendors. Where are you headed?
all the above today.
Trying to
We've
get
got
it all done.
clients, partnerships, even an investor for lunch. So,
Wow, that's
should,
exciting.
yeah,
That's
living out of the car. It's really good.
so you know what? I want to talk about. I want to leverage that for a second and move into. Did you? You know, we'll talk about the company for sure and your background, but let's just transition for a second. Did you anticipate being an entrepreneur when you were growing up? Per se, you've got a great story, and I'd love for you to share some of that. But did you see this coming?
No, never.
Not one bit.
Not even in the slightest.
What was the
No,
plan?
even if you would have asked me, I think my plan was really just to go into human capital consulting or to be some type of consultant. I always liked the idea of being somewhat self-employed, but never thought that I would be that person to drop everything, work for free for myself for a couple years, struggle, and then go get funding and have an awesome team today. So no,
Right.
not at all.
That's interesting that you just never saw it coming. But you know, a lot of people create startups because they're solving their own pain point, we might call it.
Mhm.
And I again researched your background a little bit. Maybe you could share the story of how you got here.
Yeah, I'll give the abridged version.
Sure.
So when I was 17, I was practicing gymnastics. It was the last trick of the night. Went up in the air, came down and landed wrong on my head and felt my neck snap back.
Mm.
I pretty much knew at that point it was bad that I had injured myself, but that injury left me paralyzed from my chest down. I had suffered a spinal cord injury, and doctors said that I wouldn't recover.
Mm.
And that's a lot to swallow when you're 17. And
Yeah.
so I really quite believe that yet. Call it denial, call it stubbornness. I don't really know. But I started traveling the United States looking for different treatment options, looking for something or anyone that might be able to help me. And I did that for years. I did therapy often, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for the first 3 years. And then 3 years in, I learned we're going to call it taking a step, but it really
Hmm.
was more of like the scoot of a foot. And, that led to one thing and the next. And then it took about 6 years before I learned to walk unassisted.
Where does all that
But
fight come from? Where does all that
feisty.
perseverance?
Um, it's probably in my genes. If you met my Nana, you'd probably know.
There we go. It's
My
Nana's fault,
parents are
right?
they're great. But I over the kind of that time period, patients would hear about my story and they'd say, "Hey, how did you get to these resources?" And it really was a very fragmented process. I went to hospitals all across the country, and patients shouldn't have to do that. And so when patients would hear about it, they'd reach out, and I very organically, kind of consulting,
Right.
started helping them. And by about the 100th patient or so, I was in graduate school at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
And it was my career advisor who was the one that said, "What if you could turn this into a business?
Mm.
What would that look like?" And so the second year of grad school, all of my professors really let me tailor my schoolwork towards looking at what this would look like overall as a company. And it became pretty clear that it was not only a very lucrative business opportunity, but the impact that we can have on patients with neurological conditions was so great and so huge. And so that's kind of when I said, okay, I'm not going to go and do consulting. I'm just going to work for free for myself, and we're going to make it work. And uh, here we are 4.5 years later.
So, okay, so that was the question I was going to ask is how long you've been at it now, 4.5 years later.
uh,
And obviously still that perseverance is paying off. That's all part of the startup game. So there's the
yeah.
first takeaway for listeners is you got to stick with it. The idea that it's just going to be quick and overnight doesn't happen for most people.
God, no.
No.
Not even in the slightest.
Of course. And then, so when your career counselor, your college counselor said, "Have you thought about making this a business?" Did it strike you at that moment that, because most people I talk to when they decide to start their own business, they can remember an exact moment they were like, this is it, I'm going to do it. Was it at that moment, or did it have to marinate a little bit down the road before you kind of thought, yeah, I probably could go do this?
It had to marinate a little bit more for me. The the thing that I loved about Vandy was that my professors and my career counselor saw so much more in me than I did in myself. I just kept saying, I can't be the one to start the business. I mean, sure, the other person in the class can. They're really smart.
But not me. I can't do that. There's no way I could do
Yeah,
this.
I couldn't do that. And they pushed me and said, no, like, you have everything it takes to go do this. You should seriously consider it. And so I think they gave me the confidence, and since they believed in me, I started to believe in myself. Like, you know what? I can do this. Why couldn't I? And they always would compare it, well, you learned how to walk. And I'm like, no, learning to walk was easier than starting a business.
I'm sorry to
It's
laugh
not.
at that, but it really is. It's such an interesting
No,
comment, right?
it is really funny. There's definitely parallels, 100%.
Well, maybe you could
I will
share a couple.
often joke.
Where do you see the
"Hmm,
tie? Where do you see the tie-ins? Maybe you could share a couple. I mean, what's the
oh
obviously the
gosh,
perseverance, but what else?
you'll hear 100 no's. When I was learning to walk again, my prognosis was really grim.
Right.
Doctor said that I had a 0% chance of recovery, and so I was told no over and over and over. Well, same thing here. When you're pitching your ideas to either investors or partners, you're hearing a lot of no's.
Right.
But all it takes is that one yes or that one little breakthrough to really start getting traction in the market. And so that was very similar. And then just the mindset, having a very strong mindset of, no, like, I am right about this. I know this will work, and here's why. That's really strong.
Very, very interesting. And so I may use the wrong term, and feel free to correct me if you like. But again, I study startups, and so this strikes me as health tech. Maybe you could go into what Utilize Health does.
Yeah. So we're definitely health tech. There's a big service component too to what we do. So we do specialty care coordination for patients with neurological conditions. We're very narrow niche in the sense that our solution has been specifically built for those patients with stroke, brain injury, spinal cord injury, MS, MD, and CP. And so the way that the business works is we sell to health plans. We'll go to a health plan and say, their big incentive is that our patients represent about 4.5% of the overall member population they serve, but they account for up to 24% of overall medical spend, which is huge.
It is.
These patients are having a lot of secondary conditions. Their health is just managed poorly because of the complexity of their condition. And so we come in and say, hey, we know where all the resources are. We help them medically and socially, and here's how. We come in with a program, and it's a combination of both digital tools and personal services.
Okay.
So pair every eligible patient with a dedicated clinician concierge that will assist in medical, social, and environmental settings. In addition, we have a set of digital tools that we offer to patients that allow them to search for facilities and modalities and different types of equipment that may help them. Unlike a lot of other medical conditions, there's no standard of care in neuro rehab. So even today, we don't know why I walk and why others don't. That's really a mystery in the neuro rehab world. And what we would like to do long term is really help create that standard of care. A big part of what we do is post-acute data collection on these patients. So we're able to use data models to help patients see, kind of where they should go next and what may help and what may not.
Do you feel like, you mentioned being very niche focused, do you feel like that's benefited you?
Oh, yeah.
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 And that was intentional because of your own experience to a degree, meaning you sort of understood those challenges or those, for those folks diagnosed with those challenges, you felt like you understood them?
Oh, yes. And it's not just, there's so many facets because paralysis is complex anyway, but all the different needs and the secondary conditions that stem from it, there's so much. There's a lot of generalist care coordination solutions out there, and they're fantastic. But if you truly want to help someone with something as complex as, a brain injury, a spinal cord injury, you have to look at the whole person, not just medically, where are they at. You have to look at medically, environmentally, and socially. So like environmentally, for example, I drive with my hands. A lot of patients don't have that today. Actually, I could show you right there. But a lot of patients don't have hand controls. And so we've partnered with Lyft, and we've helped patients get to the different types of resources that they need.
How cool.
For accessible transportation. And we can arrange all kinds of things like that. We partner with, well, not really, partner is probably not the right word. We work with churches because a lot of churches are like, we'll build a ramp for someone that just had an injury and that's coming home, that's a free resource, and people want to give back to someone that suffered something like that. So it's really this combination, layering different resources on top of one another that help a patient see. We call it maximum potential of recovery. Because the truth is, we don't know what that looks like today, but everyone has a maximum, and we want to help everyone find that.
To get as far as they can. Wow, a lot of great stuff. A couple of questions coming out of that. So clearly decided to focus on the niche side. Was it a deliberate choice to do a lot of partnerships to be able to stay lean but yet offer what you wanted to? And also curious if the business model was always in this place or if it evolved at all over time.
Oh no, it evolved a lot.
Where did you start out? Yeah.
We started in the consumer world. It was intentional because we did have to prove our program before we sold to health plans. So after we got funding in 2014, that was at the end of the year. In 2015, we focused very much on gaining traction with the consumers. We had a wait list for our services at the time. And so we needed to start there anyway, just because these people needed it so bad.
Lots of validation.
We ran 750 patients through the program and focused on their cases and what they needed. That also helped us develop the program even further.
Of course.
And then we used that information to package and sell a solution to health plans after that. So we signed our first health plan late in 2016.
Very cool. So it clearly evolved over time. And then the partnerships were a deliberate choice in terms of, was that because of trying to scale faster?
Scaling faster, but then also it's what our patients needed. So we started, if you want to go way back to grad school, we started with just a digital tool. The whole company was centered around what we call the facility finder, which I spent 12 years gathering information on facilities, not just are they JPARF certified, but specifically what types of equipment, what types of modalities, what types of certifications do they have that make them different, where they have the ability to care for patients with neurological conditions. And so the whole idea centered around this one tool. It was like an open table or hotels.com, but for patients and facilities. So that was important because it took me 2 years to find a facility. And that's constant travel to find a facility that could actually help me.
Yeah, it's not something you can accomplish via phone, I guess. You really need to be there in person to see what's being offered.
Yeah. And just you have to know what you're looking for. And it took, that was a big learning curve. It took that long to figure it out. And patients don't have 2 years. You know, you need to be able to help someone in 2 minutes. And that's what the facility was. And so as we started helping more patients, they're like, this is great. This is what I've been looking for years. But now I need someone, because I need someone to essentially do some of this stuff for me, which is how the concierge program ended up rolling out. And they needed to be clinicians because they had to be really knowledgeable in the space. All of our clinician concierges, we call them patient advocates.
Right.
They're all specialists in neuro rehab, which is really what makes them different. They're physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurse, speech and language pathologists. They're amazing. So they know this space really well. I believe, and our company believes, that you have to be narrow niche to help patients with complex medical conditions. Otherwise, I can call a care coordinator at my health plan now and say, hey, I'm looking for this type of resource in a facility. Let's call it a locomat, which is a piece of equipment. Can you help me find it? And they'll be like,
I don't know.
I don't know what that is. What is that? And then you spend, a month trying to figure out where it's at and how to get it. We don't have a month. We have, a short window here.
Right.
We want to be able to get to the resources, and we need them now. So that's why we believe the specialty is so important.
Very cool. Seems to me that the knowing all the resources is really where a lot of the value was early on. I'm just curious. I'm trying to think all this through. You went on your own search. Were you categorizing all that information at that time, or did you have to go back and think it all through?
I categorized it at the time because other patients were asking me about it.
Oh, okay. So that was early on.
A database just to help them.
Right.
And so, this was on a spreadsheet. It wasn't anything technological in nature, but I had it on a spreadsheet and would say, oh yeah, this piece of equipment's here and there's only 17 in the US, but you can get it here for a lot cheaper than you can over here. Even helping patients find, I lived in a hotel for quite some time, working with the hotel to find an affordable rate because I never knew how long I was going to be somewhere. I couldn't just stay at an extended living place because you have to sign a 3 or 6 month contract. Sometimes I would be there for maybe a month and then figure out I needed to move on somewhere else. So we help patients with every component of their care. I mean, how can you, if you just imagine experiencing something so difficult, you're so lost, care is being done to you, and then having someone come in and say, I'm going to take care of every aspect
Yep.
in your concierge.
Yep.
That's a dream for a lot of people.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's solving a real issue, and there has to be a component of this in you that keeps you going back to this whole perseverance thing, is that you're really helping people. I can hear it coming through in your voice. Having your own struggles along the way with getting this done, and just realizing that you're helping people. You founded it yourself. You said 4 years ago. Did I have that right? 4 years ago.
Yeah, about 4.5.
And so, what's the journey been to date? Did you do the standard startup thing? Have you been through the? I know you're involved with LaunchTN's program, or did you go through the whole pitch competition thing? How did that work? Yeah.
So we started the first year, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a pretty big failure. There was a lot of learnings in that first year.
Always is.
Oh, so many learnings, but it was a good thing. And then just, the financial struggle was hard, things like that.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, I did think about quitting for a second or two. And then my husband, who is actually one of the trainers that helped me learn to walk again,
I read that. Yeah.
said, absolutely not, you're not quitting. He was great. And I was like, okay. I just had a moment. And then a mentor reached out and said, you need to apply to this accelerator program called Jumpstart Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I applied the year before, didn't even get an interview. I don't want to apply.
Is that out of Nashville or Chattanooga?
Nashville.
It is Nashville. Okay.
Great. And it has since evolved, but at the time it was a true accelerator program. And so we applied, got in, was instantly surrounded by resources.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very structured program, which was great for a company like ours that was so young and needed to be developed. After that, we had a good plan, but we were still too young to really raise funds. So we started in pitch competitions,
Mm-hmm.
and that gave us, a little bit of ammo.
Right.
And really a big pivotal point for the company. We pitched in a competition called the Global Food and Health Innovation Challenge.
Okay.
Win, but the Tennessean did just a really wonderful article on the company. And then I woke up the next morning to hundreds of emails all across the United States, and I was like, wow.
I'm so glad to hear you mention this, because a lot of people just look at pitch competitions about winning and getting that check that comes with it, and there's so much more value to a pitch competition than the money. The money's great, but
yeah. We've never won, and we've entered a lot of pitch competitions. Never won. But this one competition, USA Today had picked up our story and republished it. And we didn't even have a website, but we had a wait list of patients instantly, which was really scary.
Sure.
But very validating.
I was getting ready to say, talk about instant validation. I mean, you can't beat it.
That was huge. And so once we started the small pilot program with the patients, we said, gosh, we have to get funding in quickly. What's the easiest path to that? We still weren't quite angel ready, because we still had to build, our product and things like that. And so we ended up launching an Indiegogo campaign.
Okay.
Launched on a Monday. We raised $40,000. On that Friday, we met our angel investors through a pitch competition.
How funny.
Didn't win the pitch competition, but they were a judge.
So did all that happen that quick? Did I catch that right? You did your Indiegogo campaign, you raised your money, and then right after it, you've got a pitch competition, don't win, but an angel shows up and says, I want to do this. What do you have any sense of what changed in that time period that the angel suddenly jumped on it?
We were coming off a lot of traction. We had completed a pilot program. We had 4 months of data on these patients with how we were helping them, how the program had evolved at that point. We added that big concierge clinician piece to it. We were building out the prototype. So we found someone that believed in us enough to say, I'm going to start building the product because I think you're going to raise the money on Indiegogo. And we raised $20,000 in 2 days. I mean, it was now, there's a lot of planning that went into that.
People don't understand. Yeah, and for those who don't know, Indiegogo is a lot like a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes. There was a lot of planning and strategy behind running that. Mm-hmm. And I did that. So if anyone ever, wants to reach out about that, more than happy to help you, because a lot of people helped me. But we had experienced such great traction in such a short period of time that these angel investors came in, and they know healthcare in and out. They are very, very well-known healthcare investors.
So it wasn't just about the money, but also the experience they brought to the table.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because we had actually turned down money at that point because we didn't quite feel it didn't quite feel right yet. We were like, well, we think we're close enough to doing a good priced angel round. So we were raising 750,000 was our seed round of funding.
Okay.
This particular angel came in and did the whole round.
Wow.
Which is, we know that that's rare.
It is, but that's great.
Yeah, they really saw the long-term vision, and they understood that we wanted to get to health plans and were willing to help us kind of ride that out. And they've been such incredible partners.
I suspect they saw the perseverance and hustle in you too, that it wasn't just about the business idea.
Yeah, I hope so.
I would think so.
Yeah, they're phenomenal people. And then since then, we've been able to grow our team. We're up to 14 people now.
Awesome.
We've our program. We're working with our first health plan. And then we've also raised more money. We've raised over 2.4 million to date now.
Wow, good for you.
The rest of it's been in a convertible note. So we're getting ready for our next priced round, probably Q3 of this year.
If I could pause you there on the convertible note, so some people may not understand that, the idea that the investment can be converted into an actual note to the company.
Yeah.
Was that a deliberate choice on your part to go that direction, or was that an investor?
No, that was very deliberate. We weren't ready for another priced round because we believed we were hitting such large milestones that we wanted to use the convertible note as more of a bridge round of funding.
Yeah, to push up your valuation and hit more milestones. Okay.
Absolutely. And so by Q3 of this year, we will have such significant growth, not only in revenue, but in terms of just working with these health plans. We've already got 6 more kind of in the pipeline. So there's been a lot of interest there. And these health plans they're big behemoths to work with, but they really, truly need our service. And so it's a great and beautiful partnership. And everyone wins. The health plan sees a substantially lower cost. If you look at a health plan, about 24% of the population, if you just look at government lines of business, that can equate to up to $370 million of just the addressable cost that Utilize Health can impact. Right. If we save 10%, that's a $40 million cost savings for them.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
It is big.
So they're winning in a big way. Their members are winning because they're getting better. They're seeing improved recovery. They have better outcomes, and they start to see their health plans as partners, which is really, that's great. And so I think it's just, I love our model. You know, even though it took some iterations to get here, I love where we've landed because I think it's powerful. It's a lucrative business opportunity, very lucrative. But at the end of the day, we're helping people.
Absolutely.
And that's why I started Utilize, was to help these patients that are very much like myself. And I feel a strong desire to continue to do that.
So a couple quick questions. What's been the hardest part for you personally?
I think the hardest part for me, I'm not a patient person in the slightest. And so kind of this long sales cycle with the health plans, last year, that was rough.
I bet.
That was really difficult. And what we ended up doing was, because the sales cycle is so long, we ended up finding a partner to work with, and they had already sold into health plans. And so we became an added benefit of them.
Okay,
so
great idea. They contracted
directly with us, and it was the same price. They're paying us the same price as we would charge a health plan. But they brought us to the health plan and say, hey, do you want to add Utilize Health on? And the health plan within 30 minutes actually said yes.
That's fantastic. So somebody else is basically selling you, which makes it so much easier. What's been the best part? I suspect part of that's helping people, but maybe set that aside. What's been the best part personally for you?
I love working with our team. So building a team and having people come in that are just as passionate as I am about it has been just huge.
Is there a particular way you've identified those people?
A lot of them are either, therapists or doctors or clinicians that we've added to the team. Even the tech people. I feel like everyone has a story on our team. Every single person, even the guy that does marketing, he has a very personal story that is so incredible that Utilize Health. He was in marketing, has been with us. He was an intern. We hired him full time. Had an incident where he then became kind of essentially a patient of Utilize Health. And now he's back to work. So he has a whole new perspective on it.
Absolutely.
But we're such a tight-knit team, and getting to build that culture and just those meaningful relationships. Everyone kind of drinks the Kool-Aid at Utilize Health. We all believe we're making a really incredible impact. And that makes it doesn't feel like work at that point. I mean, this is just something we are really honored and blessed to get to do every
And
day.
probably
That's
just fuels
cool.
the fire every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our patients, man, they just keep us going. I mean, the success stories we get to hear from them, we have a brag board. And we obviously don't post names, but internally, someone can post about a patient that, you know, they learned to walk after 22 years, or they learned to feed themselves for the first time.
Wow.
We're able to get to this point in their recovery, and we post it, and then we get to brag throughout Utilize Health about these patients that are doing incredible things, and that's really fun to do.
Yeah, well, you should. You guys are doing great things, and really appreciate you coming on. Fantastic story, doing great stuff. We wish you the best of luck. Sounds like you got some good meetings today alone, but I'm sure the future is very bright. If anyone wants to connect with you, where could they do that? Website, Twitter?
Yeah, website's probably the best. It's utilizehealth.co. Or a .co domain and not a .com.
Got it.
utilizehealth.co, or email me directly at jessica@utilizehealth.co.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great story.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.